Alright, so going to be kind of a long video. Disregard my kid playing in the background. This is my Idaho bag. I bought it from Walmart. It does just what I need it to. It ain't just insanely great, but I feel like if anyone wants to reproduce this, buying stuff from Walmart's the easiest way to do it. I write on there what it actually is, because one of the most important things that you need to understand about medical bags is you might not be the one using it. That's just kind of the way it is. Even though you know what's in there, the next person might not. So these are some of the things that I have on here so far. There's a lot in this bag for as small as it is. This usually stays in my truck, or it'll stay in the house, depending. This is kind of my EDC bag. So if I leave the house and I'm going somewhere to go do something outdoorsy, or I think I might need a medical bag, this is usually what I take with me. Trauma bag usually stays in the truck for obvious reasons. If I'm somewhere out in public, chances are I'm going to need a trauma bag. I'm not actually going to need a regular medical bag. Anything that happens in public is probably going to be pretty severe, and I'm not going to say what, but I'm sure everybody else knows it stays right next to my body armor and my pew-pew. But this is just the regular, let's not freak anybody out. Kid fell at the playground, skinned their knee, no one's got a Band-Aid type thing. All right, let me start getting into the bag, and we'll go into kind of what it covers and what I use it for. All right, so the first thing I have up here is, bugs, splinters, cuts, and heat loss. I am currently looking for a recommendation on a decent thermometer. That's the only thing I really don't have in here. I have some, these are just regular Band-Aids with different sizes with some Neosporin already on it. Keep them in there. Typically with Band-Aids and stuff like that, I don't really write the expiration date because it goes pretty quick. This was a bleed stop box that I actually took and I put a whole bunch of stuff in there. Let me go ahead and pull all this out. Okay, so inside of that box, this is what's in there. There is a large antiseptic towel, which I use for my hands primarily. If there's no water to wash my hands or anything, these are really nice. I have 3 alcohol prep pads. I have 3 antiseptic wipes. This is mainly for the wound or anything I need to clean. And I have 3 sting relief wipes and 3 non-sterile, just regular Q-tips. And the reason why I keep 3 of them in there non-sterile is because traditionally you're going to end up putting something on them. So like iodine or peroxide or anything like that. So I keep them clean, but I wouldn't necessarily call them sterile. They're good for like little bitty cuts and scrapes if you got to scrub, some dirt out of it or something. Probably not a good idea to do it on larger wounds, but I have a solution for that in here too. But that's what I put in that little box. This stuff kind of gets lost real easy. So that's why I put it in the bigger box. We'll go ahead and we'll move on to the next part. Inside that bag, I also have several irrigation syringes. Anyone who's familiar with a G-tube knows these. We have a bunch of extra ones. What I typically do on anything that I put in my bag that's sterile is I will write the date I put it in there. In about 3 to 6 months, this kind of pre-packaged stuff, I will either throw it out or I'll change it for something different, because being tossed around in a bag can puncture what's supposed to be a sterile plastic. So I'll try to get rid of them, every 3 to 6 months. It depends on the condition of the packaging, etc., etc. But I use these to irrigate, smaller lacerations, stuff like that. You can use some distilled water. You can use something. There's plenty of ways to get water if you're in a public space. You should be carrying water with you. But I use this to irrigate smaller wounds. I keep some comfort items in there. If you have small kids, you kind of know that they're, gushy. That's the best way to say it, is gushy. But I keep this in there for me too. If it gets real cold outside and you have to work outside, or you have to work on a vehicle, these are really nice to have. And if you have some kids who didn't bring gloves, or they want to play outside and they decided it's too cold, you can give them some of these and they'll sit in the back seat and they'll warm their hands up. And it just makes, outside be a more reasonable experience for kids. And they last pretty long. I think that you can probably keep these in there for about a year and a half. It depends. They have pretty thick mill plastic on it, so I'm not too worried about it being, used in my bag. But you might eventually want to get rid of them or use them as fast as possible so that they just don't expire. I don't really know if these have an expiration date, but I imagine that air seeping into the package would activate them, and then you have one that just don't work because of a pinhole. So that's kind of where I stand with it. Another important thing, if you have kids, a lot of times they do not like to have Band-Aids stay. These things are great. These are basically like a derma shield. if you put a Band-Aid over something, or you don't want a kid playing with it, you can put this on top of it or over it, and chances are they're probably not going to be able to get to the Band-Aid before you notice them peeling it off. So this works really good. Small cuts, stuff that you've super glued, this is awesome. Then we'll go over here to the heavy bleeding and burn. Alright, so this is what's in that second pocket right in front of it. I have 2 bleed stops. This should sufficiently cover you on anything that's not considered trauma. So, you know, mild lacerations, etc. You can just dump that on there, and you can put pressure on it to get the bleeding to stop if it's a decent size needle and stitches one. I carry some split sponges. They're 2x2 and sterile. The reason why I carry the split sponges is for impalement, so like fish hooks and stuff like that. If you can't get one out, it's easier to put a split sponge on there and keep it secure than it is to try to cut sterile sponge and then try to get to fit around it. Also, if you want to use it as just a regular sponge, there's 2 of them in there, so you can flip them opposing to each other and it becomes one solid 2x2 actual gauze sponge. I have some roll gauze here. I have surgical tape. I have self-adhesive elastic tape. I have Derma. Basically, it's like Derma Bond. It's a liquid bandage. That's for little bitty cuts that I don't feel like need a Band-Aid. I scrape my knuckles, etc. And then you need some kind of pain relief. I use ibuprofen because our family's not allergic to ibuprofen. But ideally, you would like to have ibuprofen in, say, like a baby aspirin for people who are having, you know, some kind of cardiac event. But this typically would cover you for about 60% of the stuff you run into on a daily basis. All right, and on the back, we kind of had some of the miscellaneous stuff. Let me go ahead and open this up. So some of the things I have in here is a permanent marker. This is very important to have with you if you need to write down any information. If you're going to be putting down a tourniquet, that's probably in a trauma bag, but I also carry one in my regular bag. I have a kid with a G-tube, so anybody who has a kid with a G-tube knows what that's for. If it comes out, I have to put that in there. I have some candy in here for diabetics. This is basically just compressed sugar and some peppermint, which will kind of help with their stomach a little bit. I have a flashlight for obvious reasons. It'll help you check reactivity, etc. I have some gun oil. I have some earbuds. I have some random stuff in it. Like I said, it's not just a medical bag. That's why I kind of keep the stuff that's not really medically related on the back side. Anything that I really need is going to be in the main 2 compartments, and we'll get to the big compartment here in a minute. So inside the main compartment of the bag, this is where all of the actual medical equipment that I need or might need is stored. I carry 2 of these pads. If you have someone bleeding and you need to work in your lap, this is awesome. It'll help protect you from being able to, you know, get a whole bunch of blood on you and stuff. Second most important thing is obviously a first aid book. Remember that you might not be the one needing to use this bag, and having medical knowledge on hand when you need it is absolutely priceless. There's a lot of herbal stuff in here, but there's conventional first aid too. It was written by a Green Beret. It covers the topic extremely well. Let's see. I have some medical scissors. I have toenail clippers in there. If you end up getting a nail ripped off, you'll appreciate those. I have some fine tip tweezers. I have some forceps. And I have a stainless steel case knife that I keep clean in case I need to use it to like cut bandages, etc. Your EDC is probably not going to be as clean as it should be if you're going to be working on people that have boo-boos and stuff like that. So I keep a clean knife in there. It is stainless steel, and I don't really use it for anything else. I have some larger irrigation syringes for like puncture wounds, big wounds, etc. I have another smaller one, and then I have some large tweezers. These are really good at, you know, pulling stingers and stuff like that out. I have a pediatric stethoscope, and then inside of here I have a blood pressure cuff stethoscope combo. I use the pediatric one because it's a little bit smaller, and then in here's the complete kit. It's got the cuff and everything in it, and then a stethoscope is attached. That's pretty much it, guys. That pretty much covers about 60% of what you'll run into.